All right. Now we've got S&P 500 as just the first chart. Let's just do the actual price chart itself.
So stocks only go up, right? Or at least that's what
Facts.
that's what has we've been taught over the last 24 months or so. But why is that? And a lot of people think they're getting rich, especially asset holders. That everything's going up and to the right, but in reality, it's more of a farce and or maybe a facade, and actually it's just the money is debasing. So what happens if we standardize S&P 500 and we put it in M2 money supply terms? It looks a lot different. And so what we're looking at since 2020, if you just standardize this chart in terms of M2 money stock, the S&P 500 is basically flat. And so a lot of people that think they've gotten pretty rich over the last 18, 24 months, in reality, it's just a function of monetary expansion. And so this kind of leads you to believe that the dollar over the short term, while I guess the Fed or other, kind of public officials would call it stable, it's actually a melting ice cube, as some would like to say. And if you're valuing anything, whether it's assets, goods, services, home prices, anything in dollar terms, it's gonna kind of skew you to believe that things are getting more expensive. When in reality, many things are getting less expensive. It's just the currency, the unit, is devaluing. And so here we have a solution, which is Bitcoin.
Got it. And so when you divide it by this M2, it doesn't look so hot. And my guess is that if you actually went ahead and you denominated this in Bitcoin, obviously it would be down significantly, which I think is it is your next one. Of course, you're 2 steps ahead of me. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's like little breadcrumbs, right? Like you're just, this is like a little game. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, volatility obviously is there. You see in March of 2020, that big green candle, but over the long term, Bitcoin is the best unit of account you can use. Nothing else is absolutely scarce, like we've kind of covered. And so just denominating something as simple as S&P or even individual stocks in Bitcoin terms will lead you to be one of the best or most ahead of the game capital allocators out there. And I think this is kind of the strategy for savvy investors over the next decade. And it has been in the last decade, but increasingly, I think it'll become the standard is denominating your returns against Bitcoin.
All right. And then lastly, you've got MicroStrategy, both against dollars and Bitcoin. How are we looking?
Yeah. So talking about going on a Bitcoin standard, valuing your company, valuing, your assets in Bitcoin terms, here's MicroStrategy. Since they've adopted a Bitcoin standard up 282%. Obviously, some pretty spectacular growth for a company that was kind of treading water for the last decade. And now if we denominate it in Bitcoin terms, they're doing fantastic and they have 110,000 Bitcoin, but their share price in Satoshis, their share price, in Bitcoin terms has basically surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, been flat, right? So they have actually kept pace with the Bitcoin standard. And so few companies can say the same. And I think this will become kind of the way that, savvy investors and increasingly everybody will have to value things in the 21st century. Bitcoin is the most superior unit of account. And if you're valuing things with Bitcoin, yes, there's short-term volatility, but over the long term, you're definitely ahead of the game and you'll get a step on people who are not.